Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm here today to present Assembly Bill 247. AB 247 requires additional training for animal control officers. This additional standardized training ensures better officer safety for the protection of animal owners and animals. Animal control officers, also known as ACOs, implement state and local laws regarding animal care, control, and public safety. Under current law, ACOs arrest and issue warrants when deemed necessary. ACOs also have the duty to investigate felony crimes and make felony arrests. ACOs may enter private property if there is evidence of animal cruelty or neglect. Private property owners do not always approve of ACOs entering their premises, putting the ACO in an unsafe position. Excuse me. In November of 2012, Roy Markham, an unarmed animal control officer, was shot and killed in Sacramento County while trying to retrieve pets from a home whose owner was evicted the previous day. AB 247 ensures that ACOs safely conduct their duties and will prevent unintended abuses of authority. The bill is also self-regulating and gives local jurisdictions flexibility how they want to meet the training. AB 247 is sponsored by the Roy Markham Foundation and is supported by the Humane Society, LIUNA Local 777 and 792, California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, Sacramento County District Attorney Schubert, and the Animal Issues Movement. I have here with me Harold Holmes and Charlotte Markham, who is the mother representing the Roy Markham Foundation. And I respectfully ask your aye vote.
Thank you. Two witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Good
and
morning.
if we, I can stretch it for a third witness if necessary.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Harold Holmes. I'm an attorney, a retired chief of police, currently an animal control deputy director for a large county animal control agency. I'm here representing the sponsor, not the county. The role of animals is changing in society. They're not just in our backyards anymore, they're in our homes. Even the courts are recognizing the value of our pets as family members, and that puts increasing pressure on animal control to be more professional. Animal control is a branch of law enforcement, investigating felony crimes, dealing with dangerous criminals, but they do it largely unarmed, with only a clipboard or catchpole for protection. To safely and professionally serve the public and the animals, these officers need to have adequate training. There is currently enough free training available to every officer in the state. They can get it in the comfort of their own office to meet the standards of this bill. This bill would not put any mandate on peace officers who perform animal control functions because they already receive in-service training. And just two quick examples of how tragic not training can be. In a large urban county in Southern California, officers mistakenly believed that they had to witness animal fighting in progress to take action. They actually returned a group of fighting roosters and the slashers, both of which are illegal to possess, to the suspects so those birds could fight and die a horrific death. In another large animal control agency, officers received a call of a dog in a backyard that looked unhealthy. They attempted contact repeatedly over several weeks, but only at the front door, never reached anyone at the front door, failed to seek another vantage point, failed to seek a search warrant. When they finally made contact with the owner, they went in the backyard. They found the dog still chained in the backyard, had starved to death. We wouldn't send police officers out into the street untrained. We should not do that with animal control. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Very good. Next witness.
I'm Charlotte Markham Rush, and if my son had the ongoing training and the training that he should have received from his agency that he worked for, I believe he would still be here today. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. We can have a third witness. Everyone's been so brief.
Just saying, Eric Sakish, Senior Law Enforcement Specialist for the Humane Society of the United States. We urge your aye vote.
All right. Additional members, additional members of the public in support.
Good morning. William Satchel, Deputy District Attorney, Sacramento County. I prosecuted Joseph Corey for the murder of Roy Markham. I'm here on behalf of Anne Marie Schubert, District Attorney, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Dennis Garcia of Hernandez Strategy Group on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice in support.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777 and 792, representing animal control officers, in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses to support? Any witnesses in opposition?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members. Jelena Voris with the Urban Counties Caucus. We have an opposed unless amended position on the bill. It's not about the policy in the bill or the training. We definitely support training, but there are a lot of training needs in counties, not just for animal control. This would have a pretty significant fiscal impact on our counties. And even though there is some funding in the bill for dog licenses to be used for this training, I have a report from one of my counties that only covers 11%. Currently, dog licenses only cover 11% of the existing mandates, not including this new mandate. So we would just like to ask for a funding source or better clarification on, and if there is this free training, why is there a mandate in the bill for us to do it if it's already free? So I also want to note for the record, because they couldn't be here, California State Association of Counties and the Rural Counties Association have concerns positions similar to my position as far as the fiscal impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in opposition? Questions and comments from members? And perhaps, Mr. Jones-Sawyer, because you are a budget expert, you would work with, I'm going to be in support of the bill, you would work with Ms. Waldron on these funding issues. I do wish to see it go forward, but the opposition has brought up some questions.
It wasn't a question. I was going to move the bill. So I'll move the bill with the additional proviso that I will work with the author of the bill to find innovative ways to find funding. And in fact, anything that we propose that produces any kind of unforeseen economic problem to any entity, I think the state basically is on the hook for it anyway. And so as it moves out, and your biggest challenge may be getting out of approach, but I will work with you and the chair of the committee that handles that so that we can possibly find a funding source so it doesn't die in a timely death in appropriation somewhere.
Yeah. And that was a motion by Jones-Sawyer with a second by our vice chair. Madam Vice Chair, no comment? Oh, you didn't second it. Oh, you have a question. Is there... All right, I will second the bill. All right, please ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for the confusion. So, Ms. Waldron, I understand the reasons for the bill, but I have some concerns specific to my district. The shelter that serves our communities, right now, I know for one of the cities, it's already an $800,000 a year cost to the taxpayers for that shelter, which is substantially higher than it has been in years past. And that was because they had, built a new shelter, and of course the JPA, everyone has to buy in. That doesn't change the fact that it's $800,000 a year for a small city to pay for an animal shelter. So I didn't have an opportunity to speak with you about this bill prior to the committee, so I apologize for that. But I'm going to have to just abstain from voting today until I talk to my animal shelter folks in my cities, because I don't believe they are going to be willing to incur an even bigger cost for these services. And ultimately, I think it will end up being an increased cost to the animal, those who adopt, those who take their animals to get shots and vaccinations there. The cost is going to be passed on. I have no doubt in my mind, because these shelters are already, they're always saying they don't have enough money anyway. So the cost is going to increase, and this is a time when I don't know that they could bear it. So I apologize. I am going to speak with them, though, and I think you and I can probably come up with something, but I'm going to have to just withhold my vote today until I can get some clarification.
Okay, and just in a quick response, I'll defer.
Just a second. She didn't ask a question, but you can raise what you have in the closing. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, anyone else with a comment? All right. We've had the witnesses. Now you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick response. Going off the numbers from 2014, we're talking about approximately 35 animal control officers statewide. So it's not, this huge amount of folks. 1,201 have already received training or are peace officers. So that's why we're really encouraged, and we are willing to work with, the folks who have concerns in the counties, as well as looking further into the online free training that's available, and the flexibility that local governments already have available for funding. So I would urge your aye vote.
Very good. So I have an aye recommendation. I think that this training is very necessary. The opposition is concerned about cost. I think you brought up some excellent comments in your close, and these are the sorts of things that in appropriations I think they can properly evaluate. It's beyond our expertise in this committee. I think from a policy point of view, this is great policy, which is why I'm going to ask the members to help move this forward and assure them that the financial questions will be answered in Appropriations Committee, on which I also sit. So thank you again for bringing this bill forward. It's an aye recommendation, and the motion is do pass to Appropriations. Madam Secretary, you may call the roll.
Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Melendez? Melendez not voting. Gonzalez? Jones Sawyer? Jones Sawyer, aye. Lackey? Lackey, aye. Lowe? Santiago?
The bill is on call. You have 3 votes. I'm pretty sure we'll get it out. We'll find out when they return and be able to take up these additional questions later.
Thank you so much.
All right, Assembly Member Stone, thank you for coming. I know you've had a busy morning in Judiciary. We're going to hear from you on which of your 2 bills do you wish to discuss first?
Either. We can take 512.
Let's take them in order then. AB 512, which is item number 8.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 512 is meant to address recidivism issues in our state prisons, and it becomes a tool that, if we can direct more of our inmates to the programming that helps reduce recidivism, we will see fewer and fewer of them that come back. And currently, under state law, they're given the ability, if they do programming, to reduce their sentence by 6 weeks, and this bill takes that to 18 weeks, trying to raise the bar and get more of certain classes of prisoners who would be eligible under this bill to those kinds of classes that we know reduce the recidivism rates. Recidivism running almost 65% in the state of California, and yet we know folks who go through the programs, and when they get out, when they're equipped to operate in the community, when they're equipped to understand the underlying issues that led them to be incarcerated in the first place, that certain populations can drop to recidivism rates as low as 5%, 20%. That's what the statistics are showing. This would be an incentive program, again, for certain classes of inmates, and we are excluding prisoners sentenced in state prison pursuant to Section 66761 or 66771, many serious sex crimes, many habitual sex offenders, the more violent crimes, murder, mayhem, kidnapping, and other serious sex crimes. Folks sentenced to life or on death row would not be eligible. But those are not populations that we see significant gains in reduction in recidivism. Other populations in prison, we will see those gains. These incentives will go a long way to help reducing the prison overcrowding, but more importantly, address the underlying issues of the prisoners in our state prisons, give them a chance to be successful, productive members of our society. We do have a couple of witnesses.
Just a second. You are prepared to take the proposed amendments?
Yes, you're taking the proposed amendments.
Good.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. And so we have Jerry Elster, the program coordinator of the American Friends Services Committee, and Jim Lindberg, legislative director of Friends Committee on legislation of California in support.
2 witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Yes. Yes, I'm Jerry Elster from American Friends Service Committee. I was convicted of a serious offense and sent to prison. I was fortunate enough to be housed in a prison that was rich in programs and self-help groups. One such program was VOGUE, which stands for Victim Offenders Education Group. This group helped me to gain true insight and remorse around my crime. I was also at the prison of San Quentin, which had the only college program in the state, so I was able to get a general education degree, a associate degree in general education. I was of that small percentage of long-term prisoners who saw a glimmer of hope in a moment of despair and wanted to be prepared when I returned to society. I am now the Healing Justice Coordinator for American Friends Service Committee. I'm also a proud member of All of Us Are Done, an advocacy group who advocates for formerly incarcerated prisoners. Many long-term prisoners reside in perpetual state of hopelessness. AB 512 will provide an incentive for prisoners who will be coming home one day to get involved with these lifetime merit-earning opportunities. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California. We're a Quaker-based lobby. Quakers, or members of the Religious Society of Friends, have a long history of working to improve outcomes in the criminal justice system, and we fully appreciate the connection between participation in rehabilitative programming and public safety. 95% of all people incarcerated in the state prison will one day return to their communities. Unfortunately, California historically has had abnormally high recidivism rates, roughly double the national average. After 3 years, nearly two-thirds will return to prison, and we think the high recidivism rates are a significant driver of our state's prison population, but it also highlights the failure of our corrections policies in the 1990s, where we saw a huge increase in the number of people incarcerated and a huge expansion of prisons, but where funding for programming did not keep pace and people were basically warehoused. On the other hand, those who have taken part in meaningful evidence-based programming are less likely to recidivate, and that means increased public safety. Those who complete substance abuse treatment programs have significantly lower recidivism rates, and those who graduate from the Prison University program at San Quentin have a recidivism rate of just over 5%. And we're really pleased that last year the governor signed SB 1391 into law, which will make junior college courses more accessible inside prisons. The Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Oversight Board recommends expanding good times credits. And as this committee is well aware, we are still under federal court order to reduce our population. CDCR has met that target ahead of schedule. And realignment was a big part of that, but realignment alone will not get us there. The federal courts have also maintained that we need a durable solution, one that is ongoing. In fact, last month, CDCR Secretary Beard made the case to both the Assembly and Senate budget committees that the legislature will need to codify further reductions. We think that incentivizing participation, where people earn time off their sentences by participating in good programming that will turn them into taxpayers instead of tax consumers when they return home, is a win-win for our state, for our communities, and for those who are willing to avail themselves of opportunity.
Right.
We urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. I believe the support of this bill has been well spoken by the first two witnesses, so if the other witnesses could just give me name, position, and organization.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Gray on behalf of Taxpayers for Improving Public Safety, in support.
Good morning. Melinda Blake on behalf of Californians for Safety and Justice, in support.
Good morning. Salima Hankins on behalf of Dignity and Power Now, in support.
Good morning. Darius Young, the Ella Baker Center, also a co-sponsor of this bill. We do support.
Emily Harris with the Ella Baker Center, but I'm giving a Me Too on behalf of CURB, Californians United for a Responsible Budget, and they're in the other hearing. Thanks.
Bobby Walker on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association, in support.
Dennis Garcia on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice and Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice, all in support.
Hello, my name is Erica Dela Cruz on behalf of Justice Now in support.
David Bouchot on behalf of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, also in support.
Micah Doctoroff on behalf of the ACLU of California in proud support.
Pete Wywitty, the California Partnership, a statewide coalition of anti-poverty organizations, in support.
Raji Prasad from the National Association of Social Workers, also in support.
Thank you all. Witnesses in opposition, you can come to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Sean Hoffman with the California District Attorneys Association. Unfortunately, here in opposition today, we recognize the value that these programs provide in our institutions. However, as an initial matter, we think that tripling the rate at which these credits can be earned is bad policy, particularly in light of recent laws that have greatly curtailed the categories of inmates who actually go to state prison in the first place. More specifically, though, we have concerns about the categories of inmates who were previously ineligible to earn these credits who under AB 512 would now be eligible. Specifically, right now anyone convicted of a violent felony under 667.5C is ineligible to earn these. Under AB 512, they would now be eligible. Also, currently anyone required to register as a sex offender under Section 290, ineligible to earn these credits, they would be eligible under AB 512. So we believe that allowing violent felons and sex offenders to now earn these credits to get released sooner does a great disservice to their victims and ultimately jeopardizes public safety. For those reasons, we ask for a no vote.
All right. Any other witnesses in opposition? There being none, comments and questions from the committee. Mr. Jones-Sawyer.
And I'd like to move the bill. I want to thank Mr. Stone for bringing this forward.
I'll second it.
And I know you and I have been working on this for ever since we got to the Assembly. We've had this this carrot and stick approach to prisons, and we use more stick than carrot. And I think at some point we've got to provide avenues in which people are allowed to improve their lives and learn different habits than they have with the stick approach. When I see this gentleman who sits in front of me who's out of prison and has not been in prison for several years, yes, I see a man, I see someone that's turned his life around, but as someone that's part of budget and the chair of budget sub 5, I also see someone that's not a cost or a burden to the state, $50,000 a year, which means he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the general fund, hundreds of millions of dollars that can go back to programming for other people who want to get out. But most important, that probably will exceed what we need, and we can also use that for schools, for roads, and other things. And so this approach of allowing people to retrain them to learn different habits through the various programs, I applaud you on that, and I'm going to, obviously, I put it into motion, but I also going to vote for this today and hope that we continue this venue. As I've always said, out of 130,000 prisoners, people who are incarcerated, if we just took about 2,200 of them at $50,000 a year, we could save the state about $11 billion over a 10-year period. And we should really start thinking in those terms about the number of people who don't recidivate, how much money we can bring back to our state coffers. So I applaud you on this effort.
Member Lackey.
Yeah, certainly, our correctional system is a very, very critical function of government. It's a very, very powerful piece as we consider the public safety component. And I believe that no matter where your perspective is on the correctional system, I believe that we're all for reducing recidivism. That is a noble goal, and I think it's something we should all work very, very diligently toward. However, we also need to balance and remember that too many that are in these prisons have been involved in creating victims. And I think that we have to always balance accountability and justice. And it's an uncomfortable position to be in, but it's a responsibility the government has, and so therefore I believe that this particular measure calls into question the accountability and justice piece, and so I will not be able to support it.
Very good. Other comments, questions? All right. In your close, my understanding is, from what you said, that this was not applied to violent felonies. The DA disagreed. Perhaps you could enlighten us in your close on that issue.
Thank you. And I'm happy to work with the DAs on the categories and refining those. It would arguably apply to some violent offenders, and we need to look at that. Because somebody is in prison for a violent crime doesn't mean that they're not eligible or able to be rehabilitated. And again, what we're trying to incentivize is prisoners to address the underlying issues that got them there. And across the board and if you look at the categories that are being excluded here, we're trying to take the most violent, the most egregious, the most heinous crimes and say, no, society is not going to accept the fact that you could have some benefit to get out a little bit earlier. But most of that rest of that population, I think we do need to figure out how to work with better, provide some better incentives for them to be taking these programs. Because if you look at the programming or the number of prisoners that come out without the programming and the recidivism rates in that population versus the ones who do take advantage of the programming and the recidivism rates, stark differences. The more we can incentivize through the carrot, taking advantage of the programming that is available in prisons, we will in fact see reductions in violence from those offenders. We will see reductions in recidivism. We will see more people coming out of prison and engaging in our communities in a much more productive way. That has to be our goal. And with that, I respectfully request an aye vote.
All right, and thank you for the clarification and your willingness to work with the DAs going forward. I think that's very important. So I'm recommending an aye for the reasons you heard from the witnesses as well as the distinguished member in his closing. The motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. Madam Secretary, you may call the roll.
Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Melendez? Melendez, no. Gonzalez? Jones Sawyer? Jones Sawyer, aye. Lackey? Lackey, no. Lowe? Santiago? Santiago, aye.
The bill is on call with 3 aye and 2 no. You need 1.
Thank you.